Well, hello everyone. Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to take your seats, we're about to begin our next panel session of the day. I'm Ed Crooks. I'm the Vice Chair in the Americas for Wood Mackenzie, and I'm going to be moderating this panel on scaling up renewable energy and other new energy technologies. And we have a fantastic lineup of guests here, some of the leading figures in the field to talk about this today. So very much looking forward to the discussion we're about to have. Gurdeep Singh, Chairman and Managing Director of NTPC. I wondered if I could start with you and perhaps set the scene for us a little bit in terms of your vision for scaling up renewables. When we talk about the growth potential of renewable energy in India in particular, how do you see that?
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. I hope that it's audible to the last row. So I think this was quite clear from the address of Honorable Prime Minister, and then Honorable Minister Mr. Puri just mentioned that how how committed we are for the kind of transition and our targets of the 500 gigawatt of the renewable energy by 2030. I think the work is going on in all directions. So as of now, we have crossed almost around 200 gigawatt on that capacity as a country, and the work is going on the full swing for another approximately 8200 gigawatt on those things. And there should not be any doubt that we will be able to not only meet those targets, but we'll be able to cross those targets. As far as the NTPC is concerned, we have a very serious role to play in this total transition journey, and NTPC is no more a national thermal power corporation. We are in thermal without any hesitation. I can say that, and this is our core business. But at the same time, we are quite aggressive on the renewable side, and that particularly on the solar side. And our target is by 2030, we should be able to reach to 60 gigawatt. As of now, let me share with all of you that we are working on almost 30 gigawatt, which is in the different stages of the construction activities, in addition to some of the capacity which is under the advanced stage of the development. And we are also looking at, it's not only going to be the kind of only renewable, but at the same time we will be also entering into the new area which is called the nuclear, both in the SMR and the conventional one. So as far as the country is concerned, there recently it is announced in the budget that the nuclear power is also being opened up for the private sector participation. We being the government entity, we are already qualified for getting into the nuclear at present. So there is a huge amount of opportunities and there is a huge potential, and the work is going on, tremendous work is going on in all fronts to see that we are not only achieving this 500 gigawatt, but in all certainty we should be able to cross. And our energy needs are really going up very fast. And by 2047, which is the developed India, Vikshit Bharat, the energy requirements is going to be immersed. So there is a space for every sort of energy in what we can see.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. So Sushil Purohit, CEO of Gentari, your business then is solely focused on renewables and low carbon energy. Same question for you really. What is your vision for the potential for the growth of those technologies?
Well, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting, and it's a pleasure to be together with such eminent personalities here. Look, I think if you and we are working in a bit of Asia Pacific way, so I'll bring the Asian context a little bit. I think it's when you talk about deploying technology, it is always good to understand where the country is, in the energy transition, what kind of endowment they have on the renewable side, what are the sort of priorities. Many countries in Asia actually have different priorities. You talk about economic priorities. There are other things that takes precedence over sort of greenifying countries. So you have a lot of these, and there we need to understand the starting point. Where are they, and then plan if right now they should be investing in wind, solar, is it battery storage? If you look at sort of Asia Pacific, and we work in Australia quite a bit. Australia is a sort of wholesale electricity market where the electricity is traded 5 minutes at interval, and that is where the price of electricity during the day can be minus $1,000. During the night it can be $15,000 sometimes, if you have constraints, right? And that's where battery storage technology is the technology that you need to implement at this point of time to balance the renewable energy. But here in India, for example, I think we have a lot of wind and solar, and we are deploying capacity at scale to make sure that we get power to power the demand the country has. And I think it's, like Mr. Singh said, it's a lot of stuff happening in India, and I think the progress in India is almost sort of something that other countries in Asia should learn from, in terms of policy and in terms of the speed of transition. So technology deployment really depends on where we are and what kind of endowment you have on the renewable side.
Thanks very much. So, Gaurav Gupta, I want to bring you in for a governmental perspective, a state government perspective. You're the additional Chief Secretary of the Department of Energy in Karnataka, which I think is generally seen as one of the leading states in terms of renewable energy development, right? I think that's fair. How do you see it then from your state perspective? What is the potential for renewable energy growth, and why has it been a focus for you?
Yeah, so I would say that first of all, renewable is a necessity for us because we have been endowed with solar radiation and also wind potential, and so therefore we have been using it for the last 20 years. When nobody was talking about energy transition also, we were using solar and wind. And what has happened is we have scaled it up. So to that much extent that 65% of our installed capacity is green. And we are going to push it up to 80% in the next 5 years. And there have been instances in which the generation from the renewable energy is such that we have to shut down all our thermal plants as well. So pumped storage and the battery energy storage is of critical importance to us, which was talked about by the earlier speakers as well. So there is plentiful of opportunities in the next 5 years. We intend to add 20 gigawatt for the state itself, and beside that we have been contributing almost 3 to 4 gigawatt for the national grid per year. So that makes it another 20 for the national grid. So that puts it 40 gigawatt to be added in Karnataka for the country.
Thank you very much. So Amit Singh, CEO of Adani Green Energy, bring you in. Again, you're a very large developer of renewable energy in India. Could you talk a bit about India and India's prospects in renewables and the role that Adani plays there?
Sure. I think if you want to achieve the targets which were mentioned by my fellow panelists, I think it's important that we recognize that we need to take big and bold steps. We need to look at developing ultra-scale projects, and we are working on developing one such project in Khavda, which is west of India in Gujarat, where we are going to develop 30 gigawatt scale project in the next 3 to 4 years. And it's going to be the single biggest project and solar and wind park together in the world. But that is not enough. To do a project like that, we need to indigenize the supply chain. We need to have a talent management plan, which is, futuristic. And it's important that the whole industry comes together to deliver on that. So that becomes a very important, let's say a project, but not a side project. It's a core project is to have a local supply chain and a talent management plan, which is very well thought over. Besides that, we are working extensively on hybrid projects. Customers in India are looking for round-the-clock power, and I think we are making sure that we position ourselves as a supplier of round-the-clock power through hybrid solutions, battery storage solutions, pump storage solutions, and we are working all together to deliver around 50 gigawatt by end of this decade.
Thanks very much indeed. So that's some fascinating, some amazing numbers there. I want to come back in a moment to talk about some of the issues you face in getting those projects built. But before I do that, Rahul Munjal wanted to bring you in, you're the founder, chairman, and MD of Hero Future Energies. So you have an international perspective, right? So you operate in several different countries. You talk a little bit about the way you see the potential for renewables and how perhaps you could set India in a global context in terms of what's happening elsewhere.
Yeah. So, thank you for having me here. So, just on that, the size and scale India offers, we're the third largest in solar, we're the fourth largest in wind already, and the kind of projects that Adani said they'll do, or some others say they'll do, there are very few countries which can cater to this kind of this potential. But I want to also go back and talk about transition. The world is talking about transition. India is talking about incremental demand of energy. So we're transiting, yes, but at the same time, we're still making more thermal plants because the need for energy is still rising. In countries where energy need is not rising as much, you're transiting into renewables. So first and foremost, as India develops more, we'll need a lot more energy, and we'll need it in every single form. And that's the next decade. Of course, we know renewables in India are amongst the cheapest in the world, so you'll see them do very well here. Then, what about green hydrogen and its derivatives? 60% of cost for green hydrogen is renewables or is energy, right? And because India is amongst the cheapest form of energy, you'll see that coming out of India as well. So I think India is poised really well for renewables and for other forms of energy, as well as green hydrogen going forward.
Right, that's fascinating. Thanks very much. I mean, so then you've all been talking about this fantastic potential and the great potential that India has. And as you say, there are some of the great advantages you've been mentioning in terms of demand growth, great resource base, low cost, and so on. What about the challenges and the difficulties you face? And I'm interested in sort of discussing those and also hearing about you get past them. I mean, maybe, Rahul, to come back to you on that, what are the issues you face in India? What are the biggest problems for you? And what do you think the solutions are?
Sure. So I'll just put the difficulties in perspective. We applied for 200 megawatts about 4 years back, 200 megawatts only, in the UK. And my last government order that I got, the last 20 megawatts is to be built out in 2030. So when I got that order, I asked my head of UK saying, are you serious? Do you think I'm going to wait for 8 years to build out? So all over the world, evacuation is a problem. It's not an India problem, it's an industry problem. So that is also in India. So we have evacuation and land, which continue to be a problem because the amount of, sadly, where the grid was built historically, the renewable resources are not there. Where the wind comes, where the sun comes, the grid never went there. But now we're taking it there. So the grid needs to keep pace with the new source of energy, with the new sources of land. At the same time, it needs to be a smart grid. So if you ask me what is the problem that's plaguing the world, and it's not an Indian problem, it's the global problem, I think this has got to be first and foremost.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting thought. I mean, certainly I can tell you from my perspective, being based in the United States, grid capacity and where the transmission goes is a huge issue for them over there as well. As you say, these problems are universal. Amit Singh, maybe bring you back in. So you raised a very interesting point about the supply chain and the issues, as you say, absolutely mind-blowing, really, the scale of the project, 30 gigawatts in solar and wind. And you're saying there's a need to build out the supply chain for that. Is that, would you say, the number one challenge for you? Is that supply chain, or what are the crucial issues you face?
Yeah, I think I want to build on the transmission line issue. I think it's absolutely critical that it remains like what we call God-level constraint. We need to solve for it. We need to plan ahead in time. And I think India has done extremely well in making sure that these capacities and grid injections are available, especially in rich resources areas like Gujarat and Rajasthan. Also, more can be done, but that is always a first criteria. But the two things which we look at solving, which is within our control and remit, is supply chain and people. And when you're working on a large site like what we just talked about, think of it like its scale is, I don't know in US geography, but if you look at Paris, it's like 5 times the size of city of Paris. You got to solve for supply chain in each of these localities of that city. And I think if you're doing that, you got to make sure that things reach on time, just in time as much as possible. And you can't do that if you don't have a very good understanding and control of supply chain in some manner. So my recommendation to the industry and sector is that localization and making sure that we have a good grasp of supply chain will be a critical way of fulfilling any kind of fast-paced execution. Along with it, people India is a big country, but India also may not have as many people when it comes to electrical engineers, which can be mobilized on these remote sites, and also different kinds of civil resources which can be mobilized at a right cost. We don't want to put in very senior people for doing a very different. So fit for purpose is what I'm talking about. And third is, building on what you said, I think a lot of these places don't have very solid weather monitoring stations. Renewable power requires scheduling, requires very accurate scheduling so that we can reduce any kind of deviations and help manage the grid properly. And so, there's a lot of effort which needs to be put in place to better understand the weather patterns in these areas so that we can better forecast long-term generation and also short-term scheduling as well. So these are 2 or 3 areas which I think are critical for success.
Thank you. Gaurav Gupta, from your perspective, state of Karnataka, what are your biggest challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the major issues, which my earlier panelist also mentioned, is about land and connectivity. And among them, the connectivity is the biggest. But we have to understand that the issue is not just connectivity, it is also integration of renewable energy into the grid. The grid is not a storage device. So the issue is that we need to integrate in the sense that in the daytime solar will have to be absorbed within the system, and the nighttime backup will have to be provided by the thermal or some other power. And that is actually one of the biggest challenges, how to integrate renewable energy into the grid. And that's what the challenge is being faced by countries worldwide, not unique to India alone. And I would say India having a very robust electricity market, electricity grid, is able to absorb it much, much more. I was in Australia some time back, and I think because the market is very thin, so they cannot absorb too much of solar and wind. In just 50 gigawatt or 70 gigawatt, they just hit the roof. But India can go on till 500 gigawatt just because we have a big market and a big grid. But the issue is how to integrate. And so therefore, coupling renewable energy with the storage could be better in the sense that you have 24 hours round the clock kind of renewable supply. Second issue what we are working on is the issue of distributed solar or distributed renewable energy. The distributed solar renewable energy means that I will produce renewable energy closer to the point of consumption so that I don't have to transmit it over long distances. And that also helps in terms of lesser grid requirements. So just to address these 2 issues, we have to, regarding land, one issue which I would like to mention is about the issue of making people prepared for this. In number of districts in Karnataka, we have had so many projects which are coming by a flurry over the last 2, 3, 4 years that people have, got just too much of it. It's just like, migration issues sometimes hits people worldwide, and people have had too much of, foreign-born people and new to their culture. So I think what we need to do is also to make people ready for it. For that, I think the renewable energy investors also need to work with the people, making them ready for more and more distributed kind of generation. And the issues will be of, for the panels or the windmills to be put in, and also about the evacuation. So all of that will require land. So land issues are integrally linked to the people. And so therefore, we need to interact with the people as well.
Thanks very much. Sushil, Purohit, same question for you in terms of how you think about your principal challenges in scaling up renewables and other forms of low carbon energy. What are the biggest issues you face?
Well, I think it has. I mean, a lot has been said about the transmission lines, and I think, world over we see that, especially if you talk about Asia, where every country is starting to put their policy towards to enable renewable energy. A lot of people just focus on generating capacity, but not really on the transmission line, and that's going to be sort of a bottleneck. We are already seeing, I think, discussion about Australia, where hitting the roof. I mean, we are there, and we know when there's sort of too much solar during the day. Sometimes there is technical curtailment. Grid is not able to just absorb the energy. So if you are investing there and in a plant and you are not able to dispatch, I think it also dissuades the investors, for example. So I think that is something that we need to continue to work, especially in India. I mean, we are deploying capacity at scale. I mean, we as Gentari, we have about 6 gigawatt of operating and under construction capacity, not as large as Adani, but and people like us, which are investing quite a bit. It's transmission, and one of the attraction of India is also the interconnected transmission line, because you can actually produce in one location and sort of use the transmission line to transmit, especially in sort of producing hydrogen, etc. So I think that is where the investment can continue to go, so that we have a robust network here and enable investments in renewable energy.
Thank you.
The other thing which I think is, especially when I touched about hydrogen, I think India is very well placed to lead the hydrogen game world over. But we need to still continue to invest also in port infrastructure, making sure that we have the right sort of port storage and terminal and also transportation, etc. And I think we need to also sort of promote India as the prominent supply hub for the world market.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to come back to hydrogen in a little while and just focus on that. Before I do, though, Gurdeep, just to bring you in on this question of challenges, some common themes clearly emerging in terms of transmission, land, workforce, supply chain. What do you think that your biggest issues are, and what do you think are the solutions? And perhaps you could talk a little bit about what solutions you've been applying to address some of these challenges.
I think it has been covered largely, all the issues, but let me give you a little different perspective. If you are going for a energy source which requires huge land mass, it is bound to face then some problem at some point of time. The point is that which part of the land is available, which region then this can be available, like what my fellow panelists just mentioned about Khavda. We are also in Khavda. We are developing 5 gigawatt there, which work is going on at present. And Government of India has come out with the policies like the green corridors, which is being kind of implemented so that the power can be evacuated from that, the renewable energy park. So that was one of the schemes which was put forward. The main issue of this connectivity and the land, because these two things go together, it's not in isolation. So if you are finding land, there is no transmission line. If you are having the transmission line, there is no land available there. So I think the both has to work together. So what as NTPC, NTPC Green Energy Limited, what we had really strategized is that we should be investing into the large scale projects, which are gigawatt scale projects, so that the transmission line can be planned with that and it can be implemented. So point is that where you can put up that. So we are working with the different state governments and we have identified land banks in the different states, like what we discussed about Khavda. Similarly, what we are doing in case of Rajasthan, where we are intending to do something about 25 gigawatt of solar. And similarly in Andhra Pradesh, MP, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, we are looking at almost all different states how we can implement. One can always argue that this may not be possible for everyone. That is a fact. Because if you are investing then in the gigawatt scale, that means you really require the huge balance sheet, you require then a kind of all, I think this, I will entirely agree that the sourcing of the equipment itself, but I think the talent acquisition, etc., then how we can really implement the project on time. So these issues will all be there, I think, and these are the issues which are worldwide. This is nothing new, so we will have to work together. I think rightly it was brought out by the Additional Chief Secretary Karnataka that it cannot be only that we can forcibly just push people out. We will have to work with them. I think this is the fact of the life. And we have to make them the stakeholder. So this is the kind of the another kind of the developmental activities or the infrastructure. So what are the issues now? Let us say and take it beyond land and connectivity. The main issue which has not come and which many of the developers are still kind of struggling to find out is that the distribution companies nowadays, they are reluctant to sign the power purchase agreement because there is a falling prices. And that's a fact of life. Again, then the Additional Chief Secretary will bail me out that if I'm also sitting in his position, and if I can see that after 6 months I can procure at a lower rate, then why I should pay higher? So this is a fact of the life.
Yeah, in fact, just to add on to that, if you're over, just to add on to that, you see, in the last 2-3 years, what we have seen is daytime prices in the energy markets falling to as low as 2 rupees or maybe even less. And then, is there any incentive for people to buy at a high rates? The utilities may not buy.
So let me continue on that. What I was just building on that. So we will have to go on finding the solutions because one fit for all solution will never work. And with the time, then it will go on changing. And it was rightly pointed out something that renewable energy, I think you must kind of compliment and appreciate the government of India for coming out a very, very conducive kind of policy and regulatory interventions that renewable energy is a must run. So whatever, whenever you want to generate, you will be paid for that. There is nothing, no question asked. So there is no scheduling. So scheduling is very limited on that. So what we'll have to do now is that going forward, we will have to start looking at that what the minimum percentage at least we should be putting in the storage so that we can schedule that power. So that the TSO, what you people are calling it, or the grid operator is having the visibility that when this renewable energy is going to be available so that they can plan. And now, as NTPC, if in a different hats when I wear, I'm buying the power from the developers and in turn selling it to the DISCOM. That is one of the role which we started, and I think then this really worked very well. Our subsidiary company called NVVNL, which is NTPC Vidyut Vyapar Nigam Limited, and later on it was taken over by SECI, that role, which has really worked very well, and most of the developers who will be sitting here, they will be always be coming forward and they are more than happy to put a very, very competitive bid if the payment risk is being taken by the central utility. I think these are the things which we have evolved as a country, which has gone really long way. So now let's see that unless we are putting then some storage capacity, I think we will find it very, very difficult. So this is the another thing which is really coming out. Now, when I was saying that I have the different hats, so I am the one of the largest operator for the owner and the operator of this thermal fleets. Thermal fleets in the case, thermal is not only coal, it is gas also, but in our terminology, it is becoming mainly thermal, means it is coal-based. And the flexing of the coal-based power plants, which really hit us. And we work with the regulator that how we can really integrate that solar energy, what rightly said. And Mr. Purohit just rightly mentioned that in Australia, you will have to face that kind of minus $1,000, which probably I think I just... So we don't have that kind of... So the issue is that you are really accommodating the renewable energy whenever it comes, even when it is required is the minimum, but you are still being paying then on the same rate. So I think there will be many more kind of developments which will happen so that we can take up, because the coal-based plants will have its own limitations. Beyond a stage it will not be able to really go up. At present we are flexing all the power stations up to 55% during the day, and during the peak hours we are making it almost 100%. So on the storage side, what we will have to evolve, I think there is the best news is that the prices of the storage are coming down. Yeah. And it has become more or less kind of good workable solution. So that is a silver lining for us. But at the same time, we cannot rely only on the battery storage. We have, as NTPC and NGEL, NTPC Green Energy Limited, we have quoted for the 4-hour storage just after sunset at a rate of 3 rupees 52 paise, which is I think less than 4 cents kind of things, dispatchable power. And if it is 2 hours, it is 3 rupees 2 paise. So those are the things which are really moving forward, and everyone will have to start looking at how they have to plan their strategy going forward. And this is solving the problem of the transmission also, because the requirement for the transmission will come down. The utilization factor of the transmission will go up. Meaning thereby is the total cost to serve, or the cost to the consumers will come down. So consumers will start paying less if these things are being adopted. So there are many things which we have to take up, and we are also working on the long-term storage solutions. I know there is some organization being represented in this hall at present, because they just talked to me in the morning, then for some time. But we have also started working that in addition to the pump storage, whether we can start getting into something called pump storage is a location based. But is there a possibility for the other technologies? I think this we need to really debate. And hydrogen is coming to be one, but I think it is too costly at present, and I think it is going to take some time. Always I keep saying that hydrogen probably is at the same nascent stage as of now what the solar was around 15 years back. Yeah. And it is a matter of time that it will catch up. Yeah. But more importantly is that you would have seen something in the media at present, that we have started work on something called energy dome, which is compressed CO2, which energy storage through the carbon dioxide. The beauty of that system, in my opinion, is that we can install with every solar park, so that the requirement of the transmission will come down, and it will be a dispatchable power. The distribution companies will find it attractive, because they will be able to get that power when they really need it most. So there is no one single kind of things, but we must appreciate Government of India, as we say, whether it's the Ministry of Power, whether it's a MNRE, as a whole government is always open to have the suggestions, and we try to come out with the policy interventions and the regulatory kind of intervention which can really fill. And that's the reason I said that I don't have any doubt that 500 gigawatt is not going to be that difficult. We should be able to cross that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Rahul Munjal, I wanted to bring you in. Thank you. Yeah.
So we've been in renewables for over 12 years now in India. So there were two problems with all the discoms and the PPA signing. The first was the cost, and the second was intermittency. The cost got solved. We all know the prices have plummeted, and renewables are, especially solar, is one of the cheapest forms of energy. But intermittency has also been answered, because 20% of all tenders that came out last year had battery storage, but 50% of tenders that came out in the last quarter had battery storage. So the intermittency problem is being answered, because now we are generating when we are, or at least we are delivering energy when we are consuming energy. And if that's 50% as of last quarter, I think going forward you'll see a lot more of these tenders come out. I like to call them complex tenders. So these take care of this problem. But Gurdeep, I have another question for you.
Why? I thought there is only one person to ask the question, but anyway, go ahead.
He actually gave me permission to ask you a question. To your point, if these RTC and peak power are cheaper than thermal or at the same price, why is it then people are signing thermal and not peak power and ITC? The RTC.
I don't know whether I'm giving the right kind of reply connotation on that. If you go to the Apple field and you are saying that Apple is only 10 rupees or then 5 rupees, then why I should be paying then 100 rupees in Delhi? So the point is that whether you can have that kind of this total capacity, you can meet the grid requirement. I think it was coming out very clearly that for the foreseeable future, we will have the space for everyone. And I was very happy to hear some of the yesterday's opening session, which came out very clearly that let's not try to see that you are going to grow at the cost of somebody else. You have your own merit. Let it come. And thankfully, the government is really incentivizing, promoting renewable in a way.
Absolutely.
So
I
why
completely agree.
why one should be raising questions on that? What is requirement? I think
The question is on
hold
your
on, hold
question
on, hold
why
on.
the PPAs are not being signed.
Hold on for a second. I think there is an agency called Central Electricity Authority, which is responsible to see that we are getting the power on demand. That is what is important. So for the government, it's very important that the power is available. So if you are in a position to say that you will be able to provide that, I think they will change their policy. So the point is that I think there is a requirement, and that is the reason this is being done. The point is that is a dispatchable. So the question is that when we will be able to make only this dispatchable, the renewable energy, and at what cost? Today also the cost of the dispatchable power for the only peak hours, if you are taking the solar, it is around 8 rupees.
So,
Only-
so Rahul, I want to. You can make your point. Then I want to let some other people come in so we can make a chance that everyone gets for everyone to get heard. But go on. What were you going to say?
No, I'm going to let others say first.
Yeah. Okay. Then go on.
The last tender was at 4 rupees 25 on that.
No. That's
I
again
think,
you
I
are.
think, I think, I think there is a confusion here. I think of looking at headline numbers and assuming that that is the real cost. I think that is the issue I think we're having here. I think we need to also think of the implicit subsidies which are present in the system, whether it is the ISTS waiver, whether it is some of the PLI schemes, and so many other ways of how the policy has kind of distorted the headline numbers. So I think we should kind of keep in mind. But what I want to talk about is, we are talking about a very large scale transition. If you look at the numbers, 500 gigawatt is 2030, but if you look at 2046, I think the numbers I'm hearing is 1700 plus. If you're looking at the growth of India at 6.5% CAGR, that is not going to be met by just one way of doing things. The problem we talked about earlier, having such large land masses, is not there. I think building a new HVDC line can take 3 to 4 years. So I think we need to solve in different ways for this transition. We cannot choose one way. I think the country is growing, country is expanding, and the GDP is expanding very fast. So I think all energy sources will be needed. And I think, we should not shy away from accepting that as well.
Right. And just going back to that specific point about intermittency, then do you think what we've been hearing is right? Then there's just going to have to be a lot more storage on the grid in general to back up intermittent renewables?
Look, I think battery storage prices have fallen down like a cliff in the last 6 to 9 months, right? I think, in fact, I think we are, sitting at this conference, and I think it's important to recognize that what has happened in the last 6 to 9 months is going to change the way the world looks at oil even. And transportation sector, if I were to forecast ahead in the next 15, 20 years, will wean out of use of oil as a fuel because of the electrical to mechanical conversion of electrical batteries is much higher. So batteries will change the landscape and it will underpin this transition at a much faster speed than it has done in the last 10 years. And I think, like all the colleagues talked about, energy storage through pump storage and battery storage is now going to be part of every project. I think it's going to be, it's for sure in every developer's mind. Everybody is making their own plans of how that will be executed, but I know that is going to be the way. And that will also solve for the transmission issues. We don't need as many new transmission lines to be built at that capacity. So that's also good news for the grid itself. And it will also help the grid balancing and voltage management, frequency management. So a lot of positives are going to come out of battery.
Thank you. Sushil, Purohit, I wanted to give you a chance to come in on this issue specifically. What are your thoughts on storage?
No, I think you're right. I mean, if you look at and again, I think we should be looking at what is the task ahead, right? I think International Energy Agency said we need to triple the amount of renewable by 2030, and then by 2050 we need to triple it again. And India being one of the country which is probably the fastest growing large economy, to really cater to the growth, we need all of the above. We need all solutions to go forward just to feed the growth, right? And I think India being a net importer of energy at this point of time, I think it makes a lot of sense to use the cheap renewable energy that we have, and use batteries, use pumped storage, any other technology that will emerge at some point of time. Combined cycle with CCS, CCUS, for example. I think you need all of the above. But at the same time, I think it is also important to understand, and since we do have a stake in the green mobility side as Gentari, and we are seeing the uptake in electric mobility, and it's right now it is growing pretty rapidly. But in 10 years' time, when battery storage prices are getting even cheaper, and I think it's just inevitable that we will have 50% of all mobility will happen with electricity in a few years' time. And if that happens, the amount of electricity that we would need is going to be tremendous. So you need all of the above solutions in India and elsewhere as well.
The forward pricing of battery in China for next year or for delivery end of this year is 20% below what it is we are paying today. That was a tender which happened in December. Mind blowing.
It is amazing, isn't it?
And what people were expecting will happen in 2030 is happening last year.
Yeah.
Just
So-
one intervention which I just I think as far as India is concerned, there is a little space for the imported LNG to feed in the grid, electricity grid, because the cost of only the gas price, the gas component, is coming out to be more than 7-8 rupees. Yeah. So that is what I think. Then, unlike the many other countries where there is a peaking which is taken care by the combined cycles or the gas turbines, that option is not really good for us unless the gas prices really comes down, which we hope that I think the developments will bring down the gas, hopefully, but I think that is let's hope against the hope. But but in that case, I think then there will be a kind of good relief. But otherwise, I think what we are doing is this: the coal-based plants which were designed for the base load, they have become the balancing power. Yeah. So this is something which is not an easy task, which is a very, very big challenge for the country.
I mean, certainly, again, speaking from a US perspective, I know there's going to be a lot more LNG supply coming out of the US over the next few years. So maybe that's one reason to think prices will come down. But as you say, it's not certain, put it that way. So we've raised the question of technology, talk about storage. I did want to talk a little bit about hydrogen and your thoughts about where that fits into the picture. And you gave a very interesting analogy, I think. Gurdeep, you said that it's hydrogen now is where solar was 15 years ago. I'm interested in how everyone thinks about sort of the balance of focus and attention and your time and capital deployment between what you might think of as well-established technologies, proven technologies, wind and solar and storage, as opposed to these more kind of frontier technologies like hydrogen and others. I mean, Gurdeep, do you want to talk about that first? Or?
Okay, I think let me give some perspective, and then probably we can have the much more insight from the others. We as NTPC, we are quite clear that hydrogen is going to become the fuel for future. Maybe not only in the form of the hydrogen, but in the form of the derivatives, whether it is going to be the e-methanol, e-ethanol, or the SAF, or even for it will help us for the urea production, because we can have the carbon dioxide from our stack, from the coal-based power station. We are developing a very ambitious and very huge hydrogen hub in the southern part of the country, the place called Pudimadka, which is near Visakhapatnam. This is going to be our kind of the big investment into that. But before that, what we are doing is we are implementing some of the pilot projects. And I'm happy to share here that we have already commissioned our first 10 ton per day, what we call it green methanol plant, where we are capturing the carbon dioxide from the stack, and we are utilizing the hydrogen, which is through the PEM electrolyzer. As of now, I think it is a bit different, but let me share that we are not very, very happy with the performance of the electrolyzer. We have the electrolyzer from the almost all the companies across the globe. We are trying from the all other technologies also. We are also working on something then from the biomass, how we can have the green hydrogen. That's, I think, the another route what we are going to try. But I think the narrative which is being developed across the globe is that it's not only the green hydrogen, but the clean hydrogen. I think this is, there is another thing which is really moving. But what we as NTPC, we are interested in the green hydrogen, because we believe that going forward, that is going to remain as one of the focal point for the future. And as of now, the cost curve is really a kind of which cannot be commercially competitive. So there has to be many incentive. But again, the government of India has come out with an ambitious plan for the green hydrogen mission, where almost around 19,500 odd crores have been provided for that mission. And I'm sure that, as I said earlier, hopefully, I think if we are discussing the similar thing after a decade here, we will be saying that, yes, this is what we are doing, this is what we are doing. Everybody, maybe today we are saying that whosoever has announced, probably only 10% are there on the world.
No, sure. Gaurav Gupta, I wonder if I could bring you in this, because I'm interested in a governmental perspective. Because I wonder, is green hydrogen really the right thing to do with the renewable energy that you're generating, given what we've been hearing about all this other demand for power demand just growing inherently. Also, as Sushil was saying earlier, electrification of transport, that's creating a lot more extra demand. We have data centers. We haven't even touched on the question of new data centers, what that's going to mean for power demand. If you have all this clean electricity, is the right thing to do with it really to make hydrogen?
Yeah, I think green hydrogen is absolutely the fuel of the future. We have to see how in the initial stages it is being produced effectively, and also it is the first usage, I think, will have to be in places where it can substitute for either import substitution, or for say, for example, green steel in substitution for coke and such other activities. We also are making it ourselves for our own captive requirement of hydrogen. So we are doing it ourselves also. Now, in terms of scaling up, I think the prices have to fall. The prices will fall over a period of time. And as the prices fall, I think there will be higher acceptance to use it in various use cases like fuel cells and number of other activities. But ideally speaking, we should try to see how we can use it as a long-term storage. But I think there are different other technologies also. I think on this entire front of hydrogen, what is important is the technological advances that are taking place. They will happen. They are being taken up by several entities. And I think that will ensure the kind of usage with the falling prices.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to come in on the hydrogen? Amit, did you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, not as much on hydrogen, but I think you talked about data centers, and something strikes to mind. You know, we're entering a new phase of rise of electricity. And we are sitting in a place where the cost of electricity is the lowest and will continue to be the lowest in the world. What will that mean for the world we live in? There is a lot of discussion happening on AI and compute and cost of compute. 50 to 60% cost of compute is power related. This is very clear that the new data centers will be built for training of AI models in places where the power cost is also low. Companies are going to be smart, and I think India will have an inherent advantage in providing that both a combination of low cost of power and also with the new focus on manufacturing, a low cost of compute as well. What it means is that there is a new transition happening of businesses of how this equation will be solved. So I think hydrogen will have its own place. It will be marginal fuel, but renewable electricity and renewable power will become mainstream, and that definitely will be, I feel, central theme in India.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. Sorry, Rahul, we're almost out of time, I see, and I did just want to give everyone the chance for one kind of final thought. If there's one point you wanted to leave the audience with and something that people should think about in terms of the outlook for renewable energy, what would it be? I mean, Rahul, maybe to start with you, what thought would you leave people with?
So I'd say we'd continue to see a lot of complex tenders in the coming years. I don't think we'll see a lot of plain vanilla wind or solar tenders. Battery prices continue to fall. We'll be surprised. Today, it is better to have, if you have a 2 or a 3 hour storage, lithium ion is the best way. If they continue to drop the way they do, we might even say lithium ion is the best way to store 4 or 5 hours of energy. So that will be the big shift that we see in the next 24 months. So I think that's one. And the other is I'm hoping that we see some smart grids as well.
Thank you. Amit Singh, your thought then?
I would leave a thought for the audience. I think, I would encourage everybody in the room to talk to your friends, family, kids, and encourage them to join clean tech, encourage them to join renewables. I think we're short of talented people. We can have a lot more people. We need a lot more people as we grow. And I think that will be critical towards the growth ambitions which we all talked about. So I'll appreciate that. And I think that's something which I would like to, conclude with.
Would 100% echo that. Great message. Yeah, thank you. Gaurav Gupta.
Yeah, so I would only say that while we are talking about energy transition, I think the basic point which the foreign investors and the financiers have to understand is India is a large, growing market. It's not like Europe where you just have to convert from one source to the other. Here we have to augment power. And so therefore we have plentiful of scope of differing technologies being tried out. And I'm sure that solutions will emerge as we go along.
Thank you. Sushil, Purohit, final thought.
Yeah, I think, as I said before, the task is enormous when we talk about energy transition. I think it's going to be a long road ahead. The long road ahead with a lot of twists and turns. So I think we need to remain focused. We need to remain adaptable. There will be different technology that will emerge, and we need to ensure, make sure how we use that and further the growth. And then the second thing that I would also like to say is this is not about one person, one company, or one country even to do the transition. It is there's a lot of collaboration and cooperation needs to happen, whether it is between government and private companies or individuals. So let's stay focused on the action and collaborate.
Thank you. Great point. Gurdeep Singh, last word to you.
Okay, thank you. I think transition is inevitable. This is the moment. I think all the youngsters especially and in general everyone, please join this and try to contribute, because there is enough Jayana what we have discussed. This is not going to be the one way what we have to do, and be the contributor, be the Jayana kind of change what you want to see and how you can accelerate this too. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great message to end on. Thank you very much indeed. Fascinating discussion. Been great talking to you all. Thank you.